do that. Perfect. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Insights with Alicia. It is Monday night at 7 p.m. in Phoenix, right? It's good to be back. I was not here the last 2 weeks. You'll find out why as we discuss the things this evening. Hopefully, if you celebrate the holidays, I hope that you had a great one and it was a contribution to you. So, but yes, it's so great to be back. I'm so thrilled to be able to chat with you all again. And for those of you who are joining on Facebook, if you want to chat, have comments, please join by the Zoom link because I can't see the Facebook comments right now. So I can only do that through Zoom. And so what do? We meet every week to learn and connect, right? And I often say things and people always want to know more about it. So that's why I started to do this. People really love the insight from the scientific psychic. And there are so many things that I've experienced that have transformed my life that I love sharing these insights to help everyone, not just my clients. I talk about relationships, our behavior, so many life skills to change your life, and tools and ideas to support all of these changes that we want to make. And let's not forget about the animals. I talk about them too. Tonight, we're going to be talking about them. So for those of you who don't know, I am Alicia Sweezer, owner of Who Knew Healing, and I am an intuitive life coach, animal consultant, and communicator, psychic medium, intuitive mentor, and I provide healing and growth opportunities for people and animals. And if you are listening on as a podcast on Spotify or Apple, welcome. And if you'd like the video version, please visit my YouTube channel under Alicia Sweezer, or even better, join us live on Monday nights. I would love to have you. And so, and those of you who are joining, if you'd love to leave feedback or have questions, pop them in the chat. All righty. So thank you for joining in. Hopefully you have your favorite drink with you to enjoy as we chat. I just have water this evening, right? Some of you may have alcohol. It's a Monday. You're allowed. Okay, so we're going to get started because tonight is a little bit more of a serious topic, but lots of tools to see in there. So it's been, for me personally, it's been a crazy couple of weeks. And I knew I was going to be talking about what has been going on. I just wasn't sure how until the last couple of days, and which is how this often works, right? You guys know that none of this it's all divinely guided or things that come in. If I were to sit down and try and force this or try and write it, it would never happen. Anytime I create something, it's always when the inspiration hits and then the words just flow out. So let's get started. So during my marketing class last week, we were talking about people who post or talk about all the money that they're making, right? Like they say, oh, I made $10,000 this month. And we were speaking to the fact that nobody really talks about the complete picture, though. They don't talk about the cost of doing business. They don't talk about how much they pay their people. They don't talk about how much debt they have. They don't talk about how many hours that they worked, right? It's just this, magical number of like $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 a month. And in terms of business, those of us where integrity is a driving force in what we do, these kind of sweeping profit statements leave a lot to be desired. And we were also discussing how no one talks about when things don't go the way we want them to, when events don't fill up or a program launch flops, right? This is a one-sided conversation. It only shows this one-time end result, and it can really easily turn into toxic positivity. And it can lead people to compare and think they're not doing enough. They're not doing it right. What's wrong with them, right? And we have talked about this stuff before. I've had many Monday nights about these kind of topics. So now this was all relative to a business discussion, but the truth is these topics are universal. And you all know sharing my stories are not always my favorite thing. And I believe seeing what this process looks like can be really, really helpful. We've all been in positions where we've compared or we've thought those things to ourselves. And even more so, there's a belief that people who do what I do, right? Go guide, coach, mentor, etc., that we don't have any challenges, that things are always easy for us and that things are always in the flow. And it's just not true. We are human as well. And it really does make me crazy when I see people in my field of work, even people I've taken classes from, talk about how their world is always flowing and that they don't have any challenging days. And I always laugh to myself about that because I think, have you forgotten that we're psychics? It's okay. So tonight I'm going to pull back the curtain, a reference for all my Wizard of Oz fans out there, and talk about what it looks like to walk through something that is really challenging, and where old triggers pop up, where we use our tools, and where we have opportunities to heal. And it's still ongoing. Still right up into this minute ongoing. So a few weeks ago, Pip, my cat, right? You guys know is my entire world. He sometimes makes an appearance on here. He was diagnosed with diabetes, and my world was turned upside down. There's no crying. So first, I needed to process whether or not he was going to live or if it was his time to transition. It was not pretty. And a massive thank you to all of the people who have supported me through this ongoing process. And in full transparency, why there's more emotion right now is because I, about 20 minutes ago, got off of the phone with the vet and got some information that it's not great. It's not bad. We literally just don't know. So it's information that has provided some concerns as well as some more questions. So that's why there's a little bit of extra emotion on right now. But I'm committed to what I do. I'm committed to, connecting with you every Monday night. It is like one of my favorite things. You guys have heard me say that a lot. So as I said, I was working through whether or not he was going to hang around or if it was his time to transition. So for the time being, he has decided to stay, and we are daily working through the challenges with this diagnosis and everything it brings with it. The added layer to my particular situation, right? Because we all know I don't do stuff the regular way, is how it was handled by the medical professionals involved. That was another thing that completely knocked my feet out from underneath me. Pip was put in a possible life-threatening situation unbeknownst to me. And I will say that I know we live in a virtual world these days, and not everything can be taught by YouTube video. And there's no judgment in that. I make YouTube videos. And for medical things, right, there is a need to have personal direction, as well as wasn't given a treatment plan of action. My questions weren't answered about this disease and how to move forward. And then they disappeared. The professionals did. So in the middle of all this challenging news, the people that I had paid a lot of money to didn't deliver and left me alone. Please know, I am not bashing anyone, just stating some facts that occurred, because in my research over the last 2 weeks, I have discovered that I am not the only person that this has happened to, which absolutely shocked me. Absolutely shocked me. I could not believe that. So I speak to that to let you know that if you've had this experience as well, please know that you're not alone. So when that happens, right, when people we have entrusted care to, whether for ourselves or for a family member, furry or not, what does that bring up? What does that bring up for you? For me, it brought up times in the past where I had been abandoned by the people who said they cared for me. It brought up my own PTSD about my own health challenges in being abandoned by healthcare professionals and being misdiagnosed and being mistreated, right? All of that healing journey that you guys have heard me talk about. It brought up my judgment of people who do this. It brought up my judgment that if you don't know how to handle something, then tell the truth. And that's not always the world that we live in. Tell the truth. Don't gaslight someone else. And it brought up making myself wrong for having questions and having emotions, which you guys know, I do judge myself when I have emotions. They're not comfortable. I don't like them. So, and the truth is it's normal to have questions in these situations. And our hope is that the people we have chosen to help us with this do their job. So where is all the learning in this? What can we choose when we are in fear, when we are in chaos, and when we are in confusion? We can choose to use our tools, which I did over and over and over and over and over and over. So what do some of those tools look like? I get a drink. A big one that I use, not only in this kind of situation, but constantly, is what we call the pivot, right? It's the catching of ourselves when we are going down that rabbit hole and making a different choice about the thought we are having or the emotion we are feeling. Now, this isn't a place where we stop or we don't have our emotions. It's a place where we catch and go, okay, what else is possible here? And the truth is in really challenging situations, we may have to pivot over and over and over again. That's just how humans work. And that doesn't mean that you're doing it wrong. There's absolutely no wrong way to do this. If you're using your tools, you're already choosing something different for yourself. And this is really one of the common things that I work with my clients on. They think that using their tools means they won't have any uncomfortable feelings. They think that using their tools means that the answers pop up immediately. And I totally get it. I wish that were true also. And sometimes the tools do work that way, right? We have that instant shift. And other times it's a process. And that process sometimes can be a little challenging. So another tool that we get to use is our inner circle. If you don't know what that means, if you don't know what I'm referencing as far as inner circle, it's a group of people you have close to you. There is a blog I have about it on my website, whoknewhealing.com. Read it. Of course, I highly recommend it, right? Another massive tool that I use is to be in the question. I was and still always am asking, what else is possible? What else is available? What's right about this that I'm not getting? Which that one, you know, that's such a unique and transformative question, because when we're looking at a situation that we judge as negative, we judge as horrible, right? Doesn't feel good, isn't what we wanted. When we tap into the possibility of what's right about this that I'm not getting, it just opens possibilities. And we don't always get the answer right then, but it opens the energy. It opens everything so for the universe to be able to bring us what it is that we're requesting. And there's other questions as well. Okay, more tools. Like I said, these are all things that I use for myself and things that I teach people. So like, that's one of the things my clients and my students and even my friends know, like when I'm talking about things, they know the stuff works because I use it and it changes things. So another tool that we get to use, right, is keeping our vibration up, right? You guys have heard me talk so many times about how we're responsible for our happiness. We are responsible for keeping our bucket full. This is why we have the happiness list, because in moments like this, when everything's coming at us and we're upside down and we're blindsided and whatever that situation looks like for you, it's really hard to remember the things that make you happy, the things that you do to raise your vibration. That's why you have them written down. That's why we have the list. And so we look at the list and we pick something. Once again, if you don't know what I am referencing, we call it the happiness list. There's a video about it on my YouTube. And if you want a free copy, go to my website, sign up for the blog or newsletter, and I will send you the list for free. It's 40 things on there, all kinds of things you can do when you're having a challenging time. So the other thing that we get to do is we also get to choose to keep moving forward, even when it feels like that's the hardest thing to do, right? When putting that next foot in front of us feels like we're in quicksand. So we get to choose to keep moving forward. And another tool we use is to honor where we are at with something. And the truth is, right, my inner circle knows this, I judge myself whenever something like this rocks my world to this level. And that hasn't happened in a really long time, as you can tell with all of the emotions. And everyone I spoke to kept telling me, this is a lot, right? It's a lot to process. It's a lot to handle. And the truth is it is like the amount of research that I do every day. And I'm pretty well versed in the world of science, right? Like I have a science degree. I know how diabetes works in people. I have an understanding of what that is. But when you're dealing with an animal, it's a different thing. And when you're dealing with an animal who doesn't let anyone else touch him but you, brings a whole other level of challenges. So it's not just like, right, this is a one and done thing. It's not, it's an ongoing process. And the truth is everything changes, right? We're talking about Pip and his diabetes here, but anyone who's had any health challenges, anyone who's lost their job, anyone who's lost their home, anyone who's lost a partner or a family, like any of this kind of stuff, anything that turns our world upside down, it's not a one and done. There's a process to it, which is why we have these tools that allow us to keep moving forward. So when I say everything changes, it's true. So my daily schedule changed. Things I do during the day changed. My social life, as limited as it is as an introvert, changed. My sleep schedule changed, which we're still working on that one. He's still not getting a lot of sleep. And as I was saying, there's a massive learning curve in this. Anyone else out there hate being a student sometimes? Anyone else think it should be easy to have all of the answers and know what to do in every moment? Anyone else judge their feelings when things aren't easy? Just me? I know I'm not the only one. And honestly, this is really one of the things that I work with my clients on. They hate being the student. They hate needing help. They hate not knowing the answers. And here is the very, very cool thing about being a student is that when we're the student, we provide the opportunity for someone to fulfill their life's path of teaching, right? If it weren't for my clients and my students, I wouldn't get to do what I love to do. Like my business exists because of all of you. If I didn't have it, I mean, I can sit over here and I can talk and I can do all this kind of stuff and that'd be great, but it's you guys that create the contribution to me. And I'm super grateful for that. So when we judge ourselves for being the student, the truth is without students, there aren't teachers. And if I didn't need the help being a student, right? So all of the people that I go to for their business things, right? My marketing classes, you guys have been with me like copywriting and redoing my website and even the blog and this video and all of the people that I go to for help. If I didn't need their help, then they wouldn't be able to fulfill their life purpose, right? They wouldn't be able to do the things that they came here to do. We're all connected. And so it's really interesting that as humans, we believe, especially if you reach like a certain age, right? Like a certain point in your life, which is a different number for everybody. But as humans, we seem to have this arbitrary thing of like, oh, I should know better by now, right? I'm old enough, I'm experienced enough, I'm mature enough, whatever. Like I should have all the answers. This should all be fine. And it's not true. I love how we think it is, right? We're super cute as humans. And no, it's not how it works. So it's just not. And we judge ourselves when we don't have the answers. Nobody, right? There's so many people, friends and clients and me included, we don't like to be thought of as needy. Oh my gosh, right? It's like one of the worst things in the whole world. So, but the truth is when we're the student, other people get to, be our teachers. And it's a very, very cool thing. And another thing that occurred, like I said, this experience has brought up so many things, so many tools to use, and so many things that I have spent the last 6 months, right, talking about on Insights with Alicia. I was like, oh, we did a video about this one. And so another thing that occurred with all of this is something that I've talked about before, right? And something I help people with. It's called grieving the dream. There's a blog, video, and a podcast about this. So once again, highly recommended, right? Now, the truth is when I've spoken about this before, it's been in reference to relationships, etc. And this situation isn't any different. The shift point here is to recognize when it's happening, what is happening. And as I've said, so many things have changed since the diagnosis. So where does my grieving the dream appear? When I practiced this earlier, no emotions. It's very funny. My dream was that Pip, clearly in my mind, was always going to be %100 healthy. And of course, right? That is the place we want to live. We don't want to live our lives being hypochondriacs, right? That is not something of a vibration we want to be in. That is, we're worrying about that something's going to happen every day. And the truth is Pip is 10 years old. And even though I have told him very clearly that he has to live forever in this body, and I know my other pet parents out there can relate to this, that's not a reality. That was a dream. And we get to have those dreams. And it's really hard when the reality comes crashing in. Particularly for someone with my skill set and my abilities. Not that I have any control over, what any soul being chooses to do, right? Being psychic and talking to animals like that. I don't have that kind of power. Only the universe does, and the souls get to make their own choices. But there's an extra layer of judgment that comes in there. I will let you know. It's true. So there was also grief around the changes in my daily life. And we can judge ourselves a lot in that, right? It's so easy to be like, oh, I should be fine with everything that needs to happen. And if I'm not fine, we make it mean that we don't love them. That's not true. It just means that we're trying to figure it all out. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, everything changes. Okay, so how do we do that? Particularly if you're by yourself, right? It's just me. People that have live, kids or husbands or spouses or partners or roommates or whatever, sometimes it's a double-edged sword. Sometimes it can be easier, sometimes it's not easier. But it's this whole process of like, we judge ourselves because we think we're supposed to be fine with every piece of it. And it's like, no, it's still an adjustment. And the truth is there's choices in there. Sometimes there are really strict things. Some things are more, in the flow, and we still get to make choices about those. So we get to honor where we are and allow ourselves to process, release, heal, and grow. And the last thing that I want to talk about is things that got triggered from my past. So like, you heard me ask the question of what's right about this that I'm not getting. Here's one of those things. Now, was this would I have preferred to get this information and this healing opportunity differently? Yeah. And I'm grateful for it. So I had no idea that this stuff was still in there. I thought I had healed it all, right? And we all know healing is a process. So, that is one of the things that I teach my clients, is that seeing the opportunities that challenging situations bring for our healing. So for those of you who don't know, a diabetic animal normally requires insulin twice a day, 12 hours apart. So you can imagine what that does to your schedule. And what was so interesting that came up for me was how constricting that was. Like, it was very constricting and very scary for me. And I mean, we won't even talk about wanting to go out of town because, like I said, he's a little T-Rex and there's no way anyone else is going to be giving him shots. It's just not an option for a pet sitter. And what it brought up for me was when I had horses and when I was married. And I always knew that having human children wasn't a match for me. And in my opinion, The closest you get to having a human kid is a horse, particularly baby horses, because that's what we did. We had a mare, we bred her twice, had 2 boys, and you got to raise them. And there's a schedule. Horses are very routine oriented. Now, obviously, if you live in a different part of the country that has grass most of the year round, or it's summer, you do get a reprieve from this. In Phoenix, it's not the case. It's the desert. And when you have a horse, right, it's a 1,200-pound animal. I used to say that it's like having a 1,200-pound chicken. It just depends on your horse. I had a 1,200-pound chicken, and then Firebolt he was like 1,000 pounds, but he was not a chicken. He didn't spook at anything. He actually would try to go get into stuff. It's better, but worse in a different way. So you just find things, you're like, where did this come from? Oh, because the horse took it apart. So the truth is, and it's also not like having a dog or cat where, you can have your neighbor or your friend feed them. Horses can kill people. And it takes an experienced person. Even then, things happen. Someone wrote in the chat, that's so funny, Avery. Yes, that's a lot of chicken. It's true, especially if you have 3 of them. So, and on top of it, we add the drama of my ex and all of the, challenges in my marriage of not supporting and not taking care of the horses and stuff, even though he came with a horse when I met him, but we won't get into that. So, right. It brought up my feelings of being trapped, not only by a schedule, but by my partner, by a relationship. It brought up my feelings of not being supported. It brought up my feelings of having to take care of everything alone. I know you guys can relate to that. And it was so interesting to me because, like I said, I thought I had healed all of that, right? It's been years since I've been divorced, wish nothing but happiness for him. And, ours was pretty amicable. So it really, it surprised me. That's the truth. Like I was already having my feet knocked out from me over and over. And then this popped up and I was like, oh, so we're just going to do it all at once, which is pretty typical for me. I don't recommend it. It hurts. So once again, thank you to all of my support system in my inner circle because they took a lot of phone calls. And so it was so interesting that was all still in there because, after that all changed, I've had years of basically, some freedom as far as being tied to a schedule with an animal or a family member or something like that. And so now when I have a schedule that I have to stick to relatively, it brought all this up. I had no idea. So one, really cool that it lets me know more about myself, about the current version of Alicia, right? Like, oh, I really like having flow in my schedule. Like I had that sense about me, but I didn't really know to the level of how I really like being able to move and change things during the day, and be in the flow of how I feel and what the energy says to do and all this kind of stuff. But that became very loud and clear. And even though, like I said, all of this was so challenging to process along with Pip, I am super grateful because I was able to release and heal even more of that. So this is the other thing that we do. Here's another tool in here for you guys. This current situation is not what happened in my past. And there is this thing that us humans do is we like to link experiences. So we like to link a past experience with a current one because we believe it prepares us. We believe it prepares us that we don't get overwhelmed, we won't get hurt, that we don't get blindsided. And the opposite is true. Unfortunately, it works against us. It's a very normal human behavior, and it's a default for a lot of people. And like I said, I still have, even I know better, and it still popped up for me. And it's not necessary. It's not required. And it's a lie, because what it really does is it locks us into limitation. It locks us into only seeing the choices that we had in the past, not the choices we have currently in front of us. It locks us into seeing through the filter, right? You guys hear me always talking about the filter that we see through. It locks us into the filter of the past experience instead of seeing the situation in front of us clearly without filters on. So what do we do when this happens? We catch ourselves, and there's an energetic clearing that I like to run that clears the energy of it. And then after that, we get to start to see what choices are there for us. So the clearing is, I usually say, everywhere I'm misaligning, I'll say that clearer. I'm so used to saying them so fast. Everywhere that I am misaligning, misapplying, and misidentifying, and then you fit in the situations, whatever they are, like this relationship to this current relationship, or this job to this job, or this person said this to me, or, they said this to me, like whatever the past situation is and the current situation. So we say, everywhere I am misaligning, misidentifying, and misapplying X to Y, I now destroy and uncreate it all. And that will start to change the energy of it. It will start to change where we're stuck in the limitation. And it will just clear our vision of what is in front of us. It's a really, really powerful clearing. And it's one that when we catch it can really change some things. So I know tonight was not the normal insights with Alicia, like we usually do. I mean, the teaching is there, right? Like every week there's tools and insights and behaviors and us humans doing all of these things. So that was there. It was just a little more serious and a little more emotional, obviously, that is usually here. And I do hope that, my intent upon sharing this was that you get to see the opportunities for growth, healing, and to use our tools to create a different reality for what you want in life. And I hope that's beneficial. And it's funny because I'm fine until Pip is sitting behind me and he's sleeping and he's snoring because he's super congested right now. So every time he snores, my emotions pop up. It's just cracking me up because he's so stinking cute when he sleeps. So, and like I said, I wanted to pull back the curtain because we only ever see, like I talked about in the beginning, we only ever see people that post or talk about these, 10,000, I was talking about business, right? $10,000 profit months. Or this, we all know people who post about relationships on Facebook, and it's always, or social media, it's always these amazing things, best person ever. And yeah, there are absolutely, we want the person who's a match for us. It is the best thing ever. And that's not all there is. There are so many pieces to the puzzle of any part of our life. And I wanted people to know that even when you do what I do for a living, challenges happen. Now, it's awesome that I have all these tools, right, that I've learned and I've created and that I get to use for people and in my own life, right? Like that's why I love that I get to teach those people. And this is what it looks like. Not everything is always a bed of roses. It does get hard. And it can be different. Even when it's super hard, it can be different. So, is it always fun? Nope. Like I just said, nope. But it's normal and it's okay. And it's so funny. One of the things my clients, they're so cute when they're being challenged and I explain to them what they're feeling or thinking is normal. And then they're so relieved. Like it's the most adorable, precious thing of, like, this is, I have one client, he's going through a divorce and he still has thoughts about his ex. And I'm like, yeah, that's normal. You were married a long time. You're still going to think about her, not in a way of like, he wants to get back with her, but just of times they've spent together. And, there's this part of us humans that we're like, okay, we made a decision. We're not going to be in this relationship anymore. We think all the thoughts and all the feelings like just get cut off. Sometimes that would be great, right? Sometimes we love to not feel those things. And sometimes it's a process. So there is a question from Facebook. So do you think we ever get rid of the scars from PTSD? Yes. There are, and I'm going to say that is because you know how I am about absolutes. I'm going to say that there's a range. Now, like I said, if you've been listening to this, you saw, like, I had no idea, that this was going to trigger my own PTSD about my health stuff. No idea. So clearly there's still some in there. And the truth is my health stuff is still ongoing. It's not like, oh, I got completely healed and is all done and, was able, it's like my stuff still happens every day, right? When you've had 5 brain injuries, it's just what you live with. There's just stuff that pops up all the time. And as hard as that is, it also does weirdly help with the PTSD, because new stuff pops up and you're like, oh, all right, what's this today? And so I do. And it's so interesting you asked this, because one of my clients asked this a couple of months ago. Someone he was dating had said, that she had completely healed herself of any PTSD she'd ever had in her life at all, which would be great. I don't doubt her. Her behaviors spoke a little bit different about it, but I don't know the whole situation. And I believe anything is possible. Healing is absolutely possible. So PTSD is one of those things that, if we're committed to looking at it, right? Because PTSD is not, and I'm not a therapist, I am not a medical professional. This is just my personal opinion, disclaimer. PTSD is not something that gets healed or released by stuffing it, by not looking at it, by just saying, oh, I'm going to stick it over there. It's not. PTSD is one that we get to look right in the face and deal with if we want it to shift and change. And every time it pops up and every time it, changes. And I've worked with clients that have PTSD, and, over time, their behavior has changed tremendously. Like one of mine, oh my gosh, I hadn't seen him in a while. He used to see me really regular in the beginning, and now I only see him once in a while. And it was the coolest thing of that. He's starting in a place of a potential relationship, and he's done it very differently this time. And what was so cool is none of his PTSD default behaviors showed up. So he has a massive need to prove himself, didn't manifest anywhere. His insecurities didn't show up. He has this need to chase, hadn't chased at all. And I showed him, I was like, do you see the work that you've done? Do you see the changes that you've made, that this is now most of the time your default? And anytime we like someone, right, or a relationship comes up, right, all that stuff gets triggered and it gets big and it's all over us. And none of that happened for him. That's the work that he's done. That's how much he was willing to look at this and shift it and catch his behavior and catch the thoughts. And we pull apart what is really, that's one of the things when people explain, wonder like, what's the difference between an intuitive life coach and particularly one who's super analytical, is that we can pull apart really what's underneath there. Like, so, there are people that are talking about the cycle of PTSD, and it's like, I can see the things under there and the energies that are stuck, and they may be stuck in your body, or they may be stuck in a thought, or you say a word and there's a bunch of energy around that word. And that's where we go. Those are the doors that we look at that can unlock this stuff. And the first step is choosing it, because PTSD is not freaking easy. It is not. And, I always recommend having a support system and having someone that you trust to guide you through it, whatever that person is. And it can be healed. Will the scars ever all go away? That depends on each person and each situation, right? Because that's an absolute. Is it possible for it to get better, significantly better? Absolutely. I can attest that for myself. Because, there's lots of things that I have gone on in my life that, some of the stories I've told, I always say that it's felt like I've lived multiple lifetimes in this lifetime, which is why I love to be able to help people. And I don't have those cycles of things anymore. Like narcissism, I don't have that in my life anymore. I healed that, and that PTSD doesn't show up anymore because I don't have narcissism in my life at all anymore. And when people show up who are narcissists, like, they don't get in. They may be like, you meet them in group events and stuff. Doesn't get anywhere near me, because that's not a vibrational match. It's not what I create in my life anymore. And I worked really freaking hard at that narcissism one. Whew, that was a lifetime of narcissism, no more. So I know that was a very long answer to your question. And I know the truth is it's not a yes or no, because like I said, it depends on every person and every situation, and it's possible. So I hope that was a contribution and beneficial to you. And thank you so much for the question. Oh my gosh, I love it. Okay, so we're at time. I have loved spending tonight with you. As always, this is so much one of my favorite things. It's usually a little more lighthearted, but that's all right. We all get to be human. So, and I want to tell you guys, super excited. I have an event in 2 weeks. I haven't done this event in a while, and it's called A Date with Spirit. And you don't want to miss it. So it's by Zoom. So it's available to wherever you are. It's a 2-hour event that is only open to 8 people. I keep this type of event super small, which is very different of how everybody else does it. And not to judge anyone else, but a lot of places you will pay more than I charge, and you're not even guaranteed to be able to ask your question. And sometimes there's 40 or 50 people there. I keep this to 8 people for a very particular reason. And so you get to come, ask your question. Everyone usually gets about 15 minutes. Like I said, 8 people, 2 hours, right? The event includes mediumship. If you want to connect with someone who has transitioned, questions for whatever questions you have for your life right now. We're going into a new year, right? So what is it that you want to create? And you can even ask a question about your animal, because I do people and animals, right? I do recommend, I mean, this is all in the event info, have a picture for your animal, just a little faster. And, one side note that please know in 15 minutes, if you have complex animal questions, they just can't be answered in a 15-minute session. I will do my best, but if there are very complex things, then, I recommend booking a private session. As well as those kind of things, there's usually more involved, right? There's facilitation that goes on with the person as well. But you get to come and ask your questions. And it's Sunday, December 18th, from 6 to 8 Phoenix time. So it's Mountain Standard Time. It's only $35. Believe me, that's a bargain. And like I said, the cool part of a small exclusive group like this is that you get to ask your own personal questions, and you get to learn from other people who are there also. Spirit will often deliver messages to you through other people's questions. And there's this magical synergy that happens that's very healing with just a small group like this. So there's a few spots left. Sign up, go to my website, whoknewhealing.com. That's new with a K. The events tab, it's all right there. Have any questions, text me, email me. And, but I'm super excited to be doing it again. I think the last time I did it was like 2 years ago. I can't believe I waited that long, but COVID and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I get to connect with you all and do all that fun stuff. All right. That is all for this evening. Thank you all for showing up. Thank you for holding the space for me to, show up very authentically tonight, and for being a contribution to that and being an allowance. And as always, if there's anyone you want to share this with, the video will be uploaded to YouTube tonight under Alicia Sweezer. Subscribe. And all these links are in the event listings. And if you want to listen as a podcast, right, it's on Apple, it's on Spotify. And thank you to everyone who has donated to my Cosmic Tip Jar. It allows me to create more free things that I get to give to people if anyone feels led to do so. Links are all in the event info. Thank you for showing up tonight. If anything I talked about tonight makes you want to learn more, reach out, book a session, schedule your free discovery call, and let's see what we can create together. You guys have a fabulous week. I will see you next Monday, and take care. All right. Bye, everyone.